The first warning came not with a bang, but with a whisper of data. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her glasses, her dark eyes fixed on the array of monitors that lined the circular observation room of the International Space Research Center. Something was different about tonight's stellar readings, a subtle distortion that made her skin prickle with an inexplicable sense of unease. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling apart layers of cosmic background radiation data. Most of her colleagues had gone home hours ago, but Elena had always been the type to chase anomalies. The massive radio telescope array in Chile had been picking up strange signal patterns for weeks, fragmentary data bursts that didn't match any known astronomical phenomenon. "Computer, overlay quantum signal analysis," she muttered, her voice echoing in the empty research center. The holographic display shifted, revealing intricate geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with an intelligence beyond random cosmic noise. These weren't natural phenomena. These were communications, deliberately encoded transmissions from something far beyond human understanding. Thousands of miles away, in a nondescript military monitoring station beneath the Colorado Rocky Mountains, Major David Chen watched similar data streams with growing concern. He had spent 20 years in signals intelligence, and nothing in his extensive career had prepared him for these readings. The signals carried a mathematical precision that suggested not just intelligence, but a level of technological sophistication that made human communication systems look like primitive drums. "This is not a drill," Chen spoke quietly into his secure communication device. "We have an incoming signal pattern that doesn't match any known terrestrial or satellite communication protocol." Within minutes, similar observations began streaming in from research centers across the globe. Astronomers in Japan, radio telescopes in Australia, space monitoring stations in Europe, they all reported the same anomalous readings. Something was approaching Earth, and it was doing so with a calculated precision that suggested not exploration, but invasion. At the European Space Agency's control center in French Guiana, Dr. Katerina Novak cross-referenced the incoming data with every known astronomical database. Her fingers moved with surgical precision, pulling up historical records, running complex algorithmic comparisons. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The signal patterns matched historical records of civilizations that had been systematically erased from galactic star charts. Civilizations that had simply ceased to exist, leaving behind nothing but faint electromagnetic whispers and abandoned worlds. The Zorn Collective. Named after an ancient word meaning crushing inevitability in a long-forgotten language, the Zorn were more legend than fact among xenobiologists and deep space researchers. They were spoken of in hushed tones, a species that didn't conquer worlds so much as consume them, leaving nothing but stripped planetary husks in their wake. Back in the Colorado monitoring station, Major Chen's communication network lit up with a cascade of international alert protocols. Military leaders from every continent began emergency video conferences. The initial reports were sparse but terrifying. Massive spacecraft were emerging from quantum slipstream zones, their configurations unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. "We're looking at vessels that make our most advanced spacecraft look like child's toys," one NASA engineer reported, her voice trembling between professional composure and raw terror. The first visual confirmations came from high-altitude surveillance drones. The alien ships were architectural nightmares, obsidian-like structures that seemed to absorb light, with geometries that hurt the human eye to comprehend. They moved with a fluid grace that suggested they were less mechanical constructs and more living organisms. Dr. Rodriguez continued her analysis, her scientific curiosity battling with a primal sense of dread. These weren't just ships. They were something more, technological entities that seemed to breathe with an alien intelligence. The moon, humanity's closest celestial neighbor, became their first point of contact. As the massive Zorn vessels began to eclipse lunar orbital paths, a cold realization settled over every research center, every military installation, every government building on Earth. First contact was happening, and it didn't look like a peaceful encounter. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, and nobody knew if they were ready. The first Zorn landing craft pierced Earth's atmosphere like obsidian needles, casting razor-sharp shadows across continents. In Mumbai, Raj Khanna watched from the window of his small apartment, a retired software engineer who had spent decades building communication networks. His weathered hands, once adept at creating complex coding solutions, now gripped a cup of cooling chai as he observed the alien vessels with a calculated calmness. Something inside Raj refused to accept defeat. Within moments of the first landing, his network of former colleagues and tech enthusiasts began to mobilize. Old chat groups, dormant for years, suddenly sparked to life. Encrypted messages bounced between servers in India, across Asia, through European data centers, and across the Americas. They weren't just sharing information. They were building a global defense system using nothing more than repurposed communication protocols and shared human ingenuity. In a small robotics lab in Tokyo, Hiroko Tanaka and her team of young engineers were already dismantling industrial robots. What the Zorn saw as primitive machinery, they saw as potential weapons. Welding arms became makeshift targeting systems. Warehouse transport robots were reconfigured with improvised armor and basic weapon modifications. Each machine became a testament to human adaptability. "They expect us to be afraid," Hiroko muttered, her hands moving with precise surgical efficiency as she rewired a massive industrial robot. But fear is just another problem to be solved. Thousands of miles away, in a Silicon Valley startup incubator, a group of programmers worked with a feverish intensity. Led by Marcus Rodriguez, a brilliant cybersecurity expert, they were developing viral algorithms designed to infiltrate and disrupt alien communication systems. Their weapons weren't physical. They were lines of code, mathematical constructs that could potentially cripple the most advanced technological systems. "Every network has a weakness," Marcus explained to his team. "And we're going to find theirs." The military response was equally unconventional. Traditional battle strategies went out the window within hours of the first contact. General Sarah Okoye, commanding the Joint African Defense Forces, recognized immediately that conventional warfare would be suicide. Instead, she began coordinating a distributed resistance strategy that defied all standard military doctrine. "We're not going to fight them head-on," she told her senior commanders during an emergency video conference. "We're going to fight them everywhere and nowhere." Local communities became unexpected front lines of resistance. In rural farming regions, agricultural equipment was quickly modified. Crop dusting drones became reconnaissance vehicles. Irrigation systems were transformed into potential water-based defense mechanisms. Every piece of technology, every human skill became a potential weapon. Communication was key. Social media platforms, typically used for sharing memes and personal updates, transformed into real-time intelligence networks. People shared alien movement patterns, tracked landing sites, and coordinated local resistance efforts. The Zorn had advanced technology, but they hadn't anticipated the speed and creativity of human communication. Schools and universities became unexpected research centers. Physics students calculated potential weapon vulnerabilities. Medical researchers analyzed the limited data on Zorn biological structures. Engineering departments became rapid prototyping centers, developing defensive technologies at an unprecedented pace. In Cape Town, a group of marine biologists discovered something remarkable about the Zorn landing craft. Their advanced technology seemed to have a critical weakness when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. What started as an academic observation quickly became a potential defensive strategy. The global response was anything but unified before the invasion. Countries that had been diplomatic rivals now shared research, resources, and strategic insights. National boundaries began to blur as humanity recognized a truth they had always been capable of, but rarely embraced. When faced with an existential threat, human potential knew no limits. Raj Khanna, watching from his Mumbai apartment, allowed himself a small smile. The Zorn might have advanced technology, but they had severely underestimated the most powerful force in the universe: human determination. The invasion had awakened something profound. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was humanity's moment to prove that innovation, creativity, and collective spirit could overcome any challenge. The real battle was just beginning. The abandoned semiconductor manufacturing plant in Phoenix, Arizona, had transformed overnight into the most critical research facility on the planet. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo stood at the center of a whirlwind of activity, her brilliant mind connecting dots that no one else could see. Agricultural drones, medical imaging equipment, and industrial sensors lay dismantled across massive workstations, their components being reassembled into something entirely new. "We're not just building weapons," she explained to the mixed team of engineers, physicists, and military specialists. "We're creating a completely new approach to defensive technology." Her primary assistant, Dr. Michael Chen, adjusted a quantum resonance scanner that moments ago had been part of a medical imaging machine. The device now pulsed with an energy signature that seemed to defy conventional physics. What the Zorn saw as primitive technology, human ingenuity was turning into a potential game-changer. In orbital research stations, astronauts and scientists worked around the clock. The International Space Station had become a critical observation point, its scientific equipment modified to analyze every microscopic detail of the alien invasion. Satellite communication networks, originally designed for global communication, were now sophisticated intelligence-gathering systems that tracked Zorn movement with unprecedented precision. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Emma Rodriguez, a 22-year-old software engineer from Buenos Aires, discovered a critical vulnerability in the Zorn communication protocols. What seemed like an impenetrable alien network had subtle rhythmic patterns that could be exploited. Working with a global team of cybersecurity experts, she began developing a series of adaptive viral algorithms designed to infiltrate and disrupt alien systems. "It's like learning a new language," Emma explained during a global video conference. "Their technology speaks a different dialect of information transfer. We just need to learn how to interrupt their conversation." Medical research centers around the world pivoted their entire focus. Laboratories that had been studying complex diseases now analyzed the limited biological data on the Zorn invaders. In Berlin, a team of microbiologists discovered that the aliens' advanced exoskeleton had an unexpected weakness to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Military research took on a decidedly unconventional approach. Traditional weapons became obsolete within hours of the first contact. Instead, teams began developing adaptive technologies that could rapidly change their operational parameters. A tank no longer remained a tank. It became a mobile research platform, constantly updating its defensive and offensive capabilities. In the Australian outback, a group of mining engineers repurposed their geological scanning equipment. The advanced sensors, originally designed to detect mineral deposits, were modified to create complex defensive energy fields. What was once used to find resources underground now became a potential shield against alien technology. Quantum computing centers became the new front lines of technological warfare. Researchers worked in shifts, developing computational models that could predict and counter alien technological advances. Each breakthrough came with its own set of challenges, but human persistence knew no bounds. The agricultural sector proved surprisingly crucial. Drone technologies developed for precision farming became advanced reconnaissance tools. Irrigation system controllers were modified to create localized electromagnetic disruption fields. Farming equipment transformed into potential defensive mechanisms. Dr. Okonkwo watched as a modified medical imaging drone rose from the laboratory floor. Its original purpose of scanning human bodies had been transformed. Now it could detect alien technological signatures, map invasion routes, and potentially disrupt alien communication networks. "They underestimated us," she murmured, watching the drone's complex systems come to life. "They saw our technology as primitive. They didn't realize that our greatest strength is our ability to adapt." Global communication networks became more than just information highways. They transformed into distributed computing platforms, with millions of personal devices contributing processing power to the global resistance effort. Every smartphone, every personal computer became a potential weapon in the fight against the invasion. The Zorn had come expecting a simple conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that refused to be defined by its current technological limitations. Humanity was rewriting the rules of engagement, turning every piece of technology into a potential defensive mechanism. As night fell across the planet, the research continued. Lights burned bright in laboratories, military installations, universities, and makeshift research centers. The invasion had awakened something profound in human civilization, a collective spirit of innovation that knew no boundaries. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was ready. The small community of Cedar Ridge, nestled in the mountains of Colorado, became an unexpected symbol of human resilience. When the first Zorn ground units approached the town, they expected a quick surrender. Instead, they found a community that had transformed itself into a fortress of human determination. Maria Gonzalez, the town's high school principal, stood at the center of the local resistance. What began as an emergency community meeting had evolved into a sophisticated survival network. Every resident had a role. Every skill became critical. Retired mechanics repaired vehicles and created improvised defensive barriers. Farmers developed advanced camouflage techniques using local vegetation. Teachers organized communication networks and managed resource distribution. "We're not just surviving," Maria told the gathered community members. "We're fighting back." Underground communication networks began to emerge across the planet. In regions conquered by the Zorn, human resistance groups developed intricate communication methods. Old radio technologies, amateur radio networks, and even primitive Morse code became critical intelligence-gathering tools. The Zorn's advanced communication systems couldn't easily track these low-tech, decentralized networks. In the ruins of a suburban neighborhood outside Chicago, a group of teenagers had become unexpected heroes. Led by Zara Ahmed, a 17-year-old computer science prodigy, they used their knowledge of local infrastructure to create hidden communication and supply routes. Abandoned sewage systems, old utility tunnels, and forgotten infrastructure became lifelines for local resistance groups. "They think we're weak," Zara would tell their team. "But weakness is just an opportunity for creativity." Personal stories of courage began to spread, transforming individual acts of resistance into a global movement. A farmer in Kenya who used traditional knowledge to hide entire communities, a group of librarians in Jakarta who preserved critical technological and cultural information, a team of medical students in Brazil who developed innovative treatment methods for injuries caused by alien weapons. Each story became a beacon of hope. The psychological impact of human resistance completely bewildered the Zorn leadership. Their invasion strategies had been developed over centuries of conquering civilizations that quickly submitted to overwhelming technological superiority. Humanity did something entirely unexpected. They fought back with every available resource, and more importantly, with an unbreakable spirit. In the mountains of Nepal, a community of monks transformed an ancient monastery into a critical communication and medical support center. Their deep understanding of human consciousness and resilience became a powerful tool of resistance. They developed techniques to maintain mental health during the invasion, providing critical psychological support to surrounding communities. Indigenous communities proved particularly adaptable. Traditional survival skills became advanced resistance techniques. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous groups used their deep understanding of local terrain to create complex defensive networks. In the Arctic, indigenous communities developed survival techniques that completely confounded the alien invaders. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had first detected the alien approach, now worked with a global team studying the psychological impact of the invasion. Their research revealed something profound. Human beings became more unified, more creative, and more resilient under extreme pressure. The Zorn expected us to break, she noted in her research logs. Instead, we're becoming stronger. Community centers became more than just gathering places. They transformed into resource distribution points, medical support stations, and coordination centers for local resistance efforts. Schools became training centers. Libraries became information preservation sites. Every social institution adapted to the new reality of invasion. The global communication networks that had once been used for social media and entertainment now became critical survival tools. People shared survival techniques, medical information, and resistance strategies across continents. The invasion had transformed human communication in ways the Zorn could never have anticipated. Personal stories of survival began to outnumber stories of defeat. A grandmother who used her cooking skills to develop nutrition plans for resistance groups. A group of children who created elaborate communication systems using nothing more than bicycle messengers and hand-coded messages. A team of musicians who used sound technologies to develop early warning systems. Humanity was writing a new chapter of survival, not through overwhelming technological superiority, but through something far more powerful: collective spirit, creativity, and an unbreakable will to survive. The real battle was happening in the hearts and minds of people around the world, and they were winning. The United Nations headquarters in New York had transformed from a diplomatic center into the nerve center of global resistance. Representatives from every continent worked in a massive, converted conference hall that now looked more like a high-tech war room than a traditional meeting space. Ambassador Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana stood at the central projection table, his fingers tracing holographic maps of global defense strategies. Nations that had been historical rivals now shared resources with an unprecedented level of cooperation. The Russian delegation worked shoulder to shoulder with American researchers. Chinese engineers collaborated with European military strategists. Indian communication experts developed joint intelligence networks with Brazilian technology teams. We are no longer separate nations, Nkrumah announced to the assembled global representatives. We are one planetary defense force. The transformation happened with remarkable speed. Global economic systems were rapidly recalibrated to support the resistance effort. Manufacturing plants across continents retooled overnight. Automobile factories became weapon production centers. Textile mills produced advanced protective gear. Every industrial capacity was redirected toward a single goal: planetary survival. Scientific collaboration reached levels never before seen in human history. Research databases became completely open access. Patents were suspended. Every piece of technological knowledge became a shared resource. Universities around the world created a distributed research network that worked around the clock, sharing discoveries in real time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led a global scientific coordination team that managed this unprecedented knowledge-sharing effort. We don't have time for bureaucracy, she explained during a global broadcast. Every second counts. Every idea matters. Military strategies evolved beyond traditional boundaries. Joint defense protocols were developed that mixed unconventional approaches from different cultural perspectives. A defense strategy might combine Brazilian jungle warfare techniques with Arctic survival methods from indigenous Canadian communities. Japanese robotics expertise merged with African communication network designs. The global satellite network became a critical defense infrastructure. What was once used for communication and navigation now served as a planetary early warning and coordination system. Every satellite was modified. Every communication channel repurposed for resistance efforts. In space research centers around the world, a new generation of defensive technologies emerged. The International Space Station became a critical observation and research platform. Astronauts from different nations worked together, developing space-based defense strategies that drew from multiple cultural and technological approaches. Educational systems transformed overnight. Schools became training centers for survival skills, technological adaptation, and resistance strategies. Children learned not just traditional subjects, but critical skills for planetary defense. Language barriers began to dissolve as global communication became a matter of survival. Agricultural research centers developed new approaches to food production and resource management. Vertical farming techniques, developed in urban centers in Japan and Singapore, were now being implemented globally. Desert irrigation technologies from Israel were combined with Brazilian agricultural innovations to create resilient food production systems. The medical community became a critical front in the resistance. Hospitals transformed into research centers and support networks. Medical professionals from around the world shared treatment protocols, developed adaptive medical technologies, and created global support networks for treating alien-related injuries. Indigenous knowledge systems proved particularly valuable. Traditional survival techniques from Arctic communities, Amazon rainforest tribes, and African pastoral cultures became critical survival strategies. What the Zorn saw as primitive knowledge became a powerful tool of resistance. Communication networks expanded beyond traditional technologies. Amateur radio operators, often older individuals, became critical intelligence gatherers. They used low-tech communication methods that completely bypassed alien detection systems. Young programmers developed communication protocols that could transmit critical information through seemingly innocent digital channels. Economic systems were reimagined. Traditional currency became less important as resource sharing and collective survival took precedence. Communities developed new forms of exchange that prioritized collective survival over individual gain. The global response was anything but perfect. Challenges remained. Communication was difficult. Resources were limited. But for the first time in human history, the entire planet moved with a single purpose. Ambassador Nkrumah looked out over the projection table, watching as global defense strategies came together. The Zorn had expected to find a divided, weak species. Instead, they had awakened a planetary force more powerful than any technological advantage. Humanity was no longer a collection of nations. They had become something more. A single, unified planetary civilization. The research facility beneath the Atacama Desert in Chile looked like nothing more than a simple geological research station. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Deep underground, Dr. Aisha Okonkwo and her international team of researchers had discovered something that would change the entire trajectory of the war. "Look closely," she told the gathered scientists, her finger tracing a complex molecular diagram. The holographic display showed the intricate biological structure of the Zorn invaders, a species that had conquered hundreds of worlds, now reduced to lines of scientific data. The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of disciplines. A Brazilian biochemist, a Japanese quantum physicist, and a South African medical researcher had been working together, analyzing the limited biological samples recovered from earlier skirmishes. What they discovered was nothing short of revolutionary. The Zorn's advanced physiology, which had been their greatest strength across countless invasions, contained a critical weakness. Their highly specialized biological systems were paradoxically less adaptable than human biology. Where humans could survive in extreme conditions, modify their approaches, and think creatively, the Zorn were locked into rigid biological and technological paradigms. Dr. Marcus Chen, a lead researcher from the team, explained the discovery. They've optimized themselves to such a degree that they've lost the ability to truly adapt. Their technology is advanced, but it's also a cage. Weapon development took on a completely new approach. Instead of trying to match Zorn technological superiority, human researchers began developing targeted technologies that exploited their biological limitations. Medical imaging technologies were modified to create precise disruptive frequencies. Quantum resonance systems were adapted to create targeted biological interference fields. In orbital research stations, astronauts and scientists worked on developing space-based intervention strategies. The International Space Station had become a critical research platform, with scientists from multiple nations working around the clock. They developed technologies that could target the Zorn's specific biological communication networks. The psychological warfare became even more sophisticated. Intelligence teams began to understand the Zorn's communication and decision-making processes. Their seemingly impenetrable command structures had subtle vulnerabilities that human researchers could exploit. Underground resistance groups began receiving highly specialized intelligence. Small teams could now target critical vulnerabilities in Zorn technological and biological systems. A resistance cell in the Amazon rainforest could now potentially disable an entire Zorn communication network with precisely targeted interventions. Dr. Elena Rodriguez coordinated the global research effort. "We're not just fighting," she told her team. "We're understanding, and understanding is the first step to victory." The discoveries went beyond military application. The research into Zorn biology revealed profound insights into biological adaptation, quantum communication, and technological evolution. Universities around the world began developing entirely new fields of study based on these discoveries. In the mountains of Nebel, a team of researchers combined traditional medical knowledge with cutting-edge scientific research. Buddhist monks worked alongside quantum physicists, exploring the intersection of consciousness and biological adaptation. Their research provided critical insights into how biological systems could be manipulated at a fundamental level. Indigenous knowledge systems proved particularly valuable. Traditional healing practices, which had been developed over thousands of years of human survival, offered unexpected insights into biological adaptation. A team of researchers from Aboriginal Australian communities discovered connection techniques that could potentially disrupt alien communication networks. The global research effort became a testament to human collaboration. Language barriers dissolved. Traditional academic hierarchies became meaningless. A breakthrough could come from anywhere: a teenager in a garage laboratory, a research team in a remote university, or a community of indigenous knowledge keepers. Dr. Okonkwo looked out over the research facility, watching teams from around the world work together. The Zorn had come expecting to find a divided, weak species. Instead, they had awakened a global research network more powerful than any technological advantage. "We're not just fighting," she murmured to herself. "We're evolving." The real weapon wasn't a piece of technology. It was human potential itself. The space above Earth transformed into a canvas of technological warfare. Massive Zorn battleships, obsidian monoliths of seemingly impenetrable design, faced off against a human defense fleet that defied every conventional expectation of military strategy. Commander Sarah Okoye stood on the bridge of the planetary defense vessel Resilience, her hand steady on the tactical interface. This wasn't a traditional military vessel. It was a hybrid creation, part spacecraft, part mobile research platform, assembled from technologies contributed by research teams around the globe. "All units, prepare quantum resonance protocols," she commanded, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. The human fleet was a patchwork of innovation. Experimental spacecraft from private space exploration companies flew alongside modified commercial satellites. Research vessels converted into combat platforms fought alongside internationally developed defense craft. Each ship told a story of human collaboration, of a species that refused to be defined by its current technological limitations. In the communication centers below, Zara Ahmed and her team of young programmers worked feverishly. They had developed adaptive communication disruption algorithms that could change their attack patterns faster than the alien systems could respond. What the Zorn saw as a communication network, humans had transformed into a living, breathing tactical system. The first wave of Zorn attacks came with mathematical precision. Energy weapons that had destroyed countless civilizations lanced out towards the human defensive line. But humanity had been studying, preparing, adapting. Quantum-shielded vessels absorbed and redirected energy attacks. Adaptive camouflage technologies made human ships nearly invisible to alien targeting systems. Every technological advantage the Zorn possessed had been carefully analyzed, understood, and countered. Admiral Crickstall, commander of the Zorn invasion fleet, watched in increasing confusion. Their battle strategies, perfected over centuries of conquest, seemed to have no effect. Where previous civilizations had crumbled, humans were not just resisting. They were evolving in real time. The battle wasn't just happening in space. Simultaneous resistance occurred on multiple levels. Ground teams used adaptive technologies developed from global research efforts. Communication networks transformed into sophisticated intelligence platforms. Every human became a potential point of resistance. In the orbital research stations, scientists continued their work even as battle raged outside. Dr. Elena Rodriguez coordinated real-time tactical analysis, feeding critical information to the defense fleet. Traditional boundaries between military, scientific, and civilian efforts had completely dissolved. The Zorn's centralized command structure became their greatest weakness. Each ship was part of a unified network, which meant a vulnerability in one could be exploited across their entire fleet. Human forces, by contrast, were decentralized and adaptive. Each ship, each team could respond independently while maintaining overall strategic coordination. Indigenous tracking techniques merged with advanced space detection technologies. A team of Australian Aboriginal researchers had developed detection methods based on traditional navigation techniques that completely bypassed Zorn scanning technologies. Their knowledge, passed down through generations, became a critical tactical advantage. Quantum communication networks allowed instantaneous sharing of tactical information. A breakthrough in one part of the battle could be immediately integrated into overall strategy. The human defense was a living, breathing organism, constantly learning, constantly adapting. The Zorn had conquered worlds by presenting an overwhelming technological advantage. Humanity responded by turning technology itself into a fluid, adaptive weapon. Each alien attack was studied, understood, and countered within moments. "They're changing faster than we can predict," Admiral Crickstall muttered to his command team, a note of genuine confusion in his voice. Commander Okoye allowed herself a small smile. "That's the point," she whispered. As the battle reached its critical phase, it became clear this was more than a military confrontation. This was a fundamental clash of philosophical approaches to existence. The Zorn represented technological optimization taken to its ultimate conclusion. Humanity represented something far more dynamic, a species defined by its ability to change, to adapt, to survive. The final moments of the battle would determine more than just planetary survival. They would prove whether rigid technological perfection could overcome the messy, unpredictable nature of human potential. Earth waited. Humanity stood united. The silence after the battle was more profound than the conflict itself. Debris from Zorn battleships drifted slowly through Earth's orbital space, a testament to humanity's incredible victory. In research centers, military installations, and community gathering spaces around the world, people began to realize the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the window of the International Space Research Center, watching the last remnants of the alien fleet dissolve into cosmic dust. The global collaboration that had seemed impossible just months ago had become their greatest weapon. Humanity had not just survived. They had transformed. The technological breakthroughs were unprecedented. Research teams began cataloging the incredible innovations developed during the conflict. Quantum communication technologies that could revolutionize global communication. Adaptive medical technologies that could treat previously incurable conditions. Energy generation systems that could solve decades of environmental challenges. Ambassador Kwame Nkrumah addressed the United Nations, his voice carrying the weight of a species that had looked into the abyss and emerged stronger. "We are no longer who we were before the invasion," he declared. "We are something more." The global research network that had been created during the conflict showed no signs of dissolving. Universities around the world continued their collaborative efforts. The open-source approach to scientific discovery had proven more powerful than any proprietary research model. Barriers between disciplines, between nations, had been permanently transformed. In the Atacama Desert Research Facility, Dr. Aisha Okonkwo led a team analyzing the final data from the conflict. The Zorn's technological systems revealed insights that would take decades to fully understand. But more importantly, the research showed something profound about human potential. "We didn't win through superior technology," she explained to her international team. We won through our ability to adapt, to collaborate, to see challenges as opportunities. The economic systems that had been rapidly transformed during the invasion began to settle into a new normal. The global cooperation that had been born of necessity continued to evolve. Resources were now shared more equitably. The concept of national boundaries began to blur as the planet recognized its collective potential. Space exploration programs received unprecedented funding and support. The technologies developed during the conflict opened up possibilities that had previously been considered impossible. Private space exploration companies worked alongside government research institutions, creating a new era of cosmic exploration. Educational systems underwent a complete transformation. Schools now taught not just traditional subjects, but emphasized adaptability, collaborative problem-solving, and interdisciplinary thinking. The lessons learned during the invasion became core curriculum around the world. In the mountains of Nepal, the research team that had combined quantum physics with traditional Buddhist knowledge continued their work. The invasion had proven that human potential existed beyond traditional technological understanding. Consciousness, adaptation, and collective intelligence became serious fields of scientific study. Indigenous knowledge systems received new levels of respect and scientific validation. The traditional survival techniques, communication methods, and philosophical approaches that had proven critical during the invasion were now recognized as fundamental to human survival. Commander Sarah Okoye began developing a new approach to global defense. But it was more than just a military strategy. It was a comprehensive plan for human development that emphasized collaboration, adaptability, and collective potential. Zahra Ahmed and her team of young programmers continued to develop adaptive communication technologies. The skills they had developed during the invasion were now being applied to solving global challenges. Communication networks became platforms for global problem-solving. As news spread beyond Earth, other galactic civilizations began to take notice. The transmission intercepted from the last Zorn ship continued to be studied. "They are not a species," it had said. "They are a revolution." Dr. Rodriguez looked out over the research center, watching teams from around the world continue their collaborative work. The invasion had been more than a conflict. It had been a transformation. Humanity had discovered something profound about itself. They were not defined by their current limitations. They were defined by their potential to overcome them. The real journey was just beginning.